start with Jackie, just since you're closest on my screen. We're calling this the Turnaround Roundtable. So when you've faced challenges, how you overcame it, and get some of your expertise, frankly, at this point, how you made the system work for you. So I guess the first question to ask, though, is like, where were you before starting? Like, what was that trigger point that made you kind of decide to invest and get started here?
Okay, I think I had shared this a little while ago on like a little interview we had done. And I postpartum, I think my youngest was probably about a year old or almost a year old. And I was like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I was not happy with where I was physically. And so I wanted to, like do something like exercise wise. And so I had found like a little like pretty easy workout, maybe do 3 rounds and no equipment, just body exercises. And it got to the part to do sit-ups, do whatever it does in sit-ups. And I went to go do my sit-ups and I could not do a sit-up. And I was shocked and upset and crying and I couldn't believe it. So for me, that was kind of the the breaking point. And then it probably took me a few weeks to eventually reach it. I think you did like an evening call or something like open to the public. So that's when I booked an appointment and the rest is history. So
There we go. I like it. So the sit-up failure was what triggered you for you. Yeah, and everyone has their trigger point.
yeah.
That's a good one. So what did you think was going to be hard about this process, or maybe what surprised you that wasn't as hard as you thought? Like coming in, was there any concerns or fear on your part? I think it's natural to feel a bit of that, but how'd that first bit go?
Yeah, I remember my first day. It was a Monday, and so I had gotten like all the information, my cap, and I think you had given me some like example meal plans and that kind of thing. And I was like almost frozen. Maybe it was just like information overload, but I don't think I had breakfast that day because I was just like so overwhelmed. And I also have like 3 little kids.
Yeah.
1 second. Sorry, just my reminder alarm going off. And so I didn't even eat anything. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't like, I had no idea. And then I think what really scared me was like the protein number. I was like, that's like, I don't even think that's possible. Like, I don't even like know what, like, I don't even know. So that was very overwhelming at first. But I was like, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to get everything right on the first day. So I'm just going to do what I can. So I think like the first day I drank my water, I got my steps in, I tracked my food. I think we had gone out for dinner. It was my husband's birthday. So I tried to like eat like a reasonable amount of food where I wasn't like stuffed, but I felt satiated. I tracked everything. I think I went over, which not a big deal at that point. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna do what I can do. So then the next day, kind of the same thing. I was like, hey, I'm gonna get my sleep in. I'm gonna drink my water. I'm gonna get my steps in. I'm gonna track what I eat. I think I was probably over the first few days, but um eventually I was like, okay, so I know how to track my food now. Now I'm going to get to that calorie, like get within my calories. So then that was the next step. And then I think within probably like a week and a half or 2 weeks, I started hitting my protein on a regular basis. It took a little bit of figuring out, but yeah, but then once I kind of slowly got things in order, yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, and even when I wasn't hitting everything 100%, I was still seeing progress. So, the first week I probably lost like 3 or 4 pounds, which I think is somewhat normal when you're starting a new program to see a bit of a whoosh when you're restricting your calories a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah. So even though I didn't get everything perfect right away, I was still seeing results. I was doing my best, and it's just a work in progress.
And nailed it. Yeah, that's kind of the James Clear approach where we have all this stuff on paper that seems it fits on a napkin, right? But it's still hard to execute all of it 100%. So like one step at a time, one habit, get that down, and then move on to the next. That seems like that's how you approach things. So if protein was your weak link initially, how'd you kind of resolve that? Like what are kind of some of your secrets to hitting your protein target? Like,
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So I had always like, um, I had always like used protein powder in smoothies, but like looking back, it was, maybe like a half portion or like a half serving of my protein powder and lots of like other things. And so I kind of switched that around to now I do like mostly protein powder with the allotted amount of liquid, whether that's water or maybe like a protein milk or something. And I'll still add, maybe some fruit or some spinach or something in when needed, but just understanding like the calorie allotment. I'm vegan, so I wasn't a pretty healthy vegan, like healthy vegan in the sense that I was eating mostly whole foods, and so I was like a little bit apprehensive about things that would be considered like processed. So like, okay, things that have more than, I don't know, 8 ingredients were on like the occasional list. And if something had like an artificial sweetener in it, like, oh, I don't know, like I'd rather have the full calorie Pepsi than like the diet Pepsi or Pepsi Zero. And so now, being where I am now, it's like, okay, I think finding just like a healthy balance. Because so an example would be, I love hummus. That's like a wonderful snack and I love it. And I'd, maybe eat it with veggies or crackers. I'd make these homemade like seed crackers. And so like, I think when you're not looking maybe at the macros, that is considered like a very healthy snack. But then once you add up the calories and that sort of thing and comparing it with how much protein is in it, in my mind I would be like, oh, it's made with beans and seeds that's got like protein in it and whatever. And it's not bad. Like I think there's lots of great nutrients like fiber and some other micronutrients in there, so it's not bad. But just understanding like, oh, that's actually a lot of calories, and considering I wasn't necessarily moving as much as I should have been. I wasn't working out. It's like, okay, maybe, I mean, and like when you look at, like, say, a container of hummus, a serving is like 2 tablespoons. I don't think I've ever eaten 2 tablespoons of hummus. Like, that goes on like 4 cucumber slices. That's ridiculous. So, and a serving is like anywhere from, I don't know, 60 to 100 calories. So I'm sure I was easily having a healthy snack of like 500 calories or something. And I had no idea. I thought I was just like having a healthy little snack. And again, not bad, like not a bad choice, but you know, I still eat these things, but I work them into my cap. I have less, I measure it out. I'm just much more mindful.
Nice. So the awareness or being more conscious of your overall calorie intake. And yeah, that's a misconception a lot of times, even with peanut butter. Oh, that's healthy. It's made with peanuts, but quantity matters with this stuff, right? When we're trying to create a deficit. All good stuff. So maybe one thing to share, what's one tactical thing you do each week that maybe is a little bit off the board that really works for you to keep you compliant to everything? If there has to be one strategy for people to take away here.
I really enjoy planning my, whether it's like half a week or a full week of food ahead of time. So I just like pre-log everything, and it doesn't mean that it's set in stone, but yeah, I can make changes as I go along or if plans change or whatever. But I do most of the cooking and grocery shopping, so I have a good idea of, like what needs to get used up, what recipes I have in mind. And so it's not unusual for me to like know the next, 4 or 5 days what I'm going to eat. And I I really enjoy that. For me, it's kind of like almost like a little Tetris game of like, figuring out what recipes and like what, like if I need more protein, and okay, I got to take something away and add something. And I enjoy that. I know I probably didn't enjoy that at the beginning. It was probably a little bit stressful, but now that I've gotten the hang of it, and I've got, some of my go-to recipes, and I've got different, kind of like toppers, or like, oh, I need, a few extra grams of protein. Okay, I'll put a tablespoon of this on my salad or whatever. And it just helps to, yeah, like it takes a while to find those things and figure it all out. But I find that pre-logging everything really takes a lot of the pressure off, because then, whether it's before bed, I take a look at what I'm going to eat the next day, and or in the morning, I double check, and it's like, okay, this looks good. I know what that's one thing I don't have to think about.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really advanced strategy. So I don't recommend that everyone tries week in advance. That's probably down the road. But
Okay.
there's a real lesson in that though, right? The pre-logging, pre-planning at least the next day, because you will save time for sure. Like trying to figure it out on the fly is so much harder, so much more mental bandwidth required. So I think there's a real hack to what you said there. And if you expand it to a full week, then awesome. I've never been able to do that myself, but kudos to you. That's awesome. So I kind of want to share, like, I know you're really consistent, so it might not be the best question to ask, but like, you have young kids, they get sick. Like, what happens when shite hits the fan? You have one of those off weeks. How do you kind of stay in the game? Like, what's your floor for this stuff? Like, how do you stay dialed in to a certain degree, at least?
Yeah, I would say having things available like in the house where, like, yeah, sometimes, everybody's sick and I can't go to the grocery store. And so, yeah, just like making sure that I've got enough things, whether it's in the freezer or the fridge, or like I have some like packaged things that, if I really don't have time, I can, pop it in the microwave and it's ready in a minute. There's, the odd thing like that. Um, yeah, so I would say like crunch time, having like, protein bars, or I really like doing the little like snack mixes, like the high protein snack mixes, or protein powder, of course, like just having things that don't take a lot of time to prepare and that I can, I've only got 5 minutes, before, whatever, I've got to help the next kid or whatever, in the washroom or something. Then it's like, okay, I've got stuff available to that I can get ready quickly.
Mm, having a backup plan. Yeah, I like
Exactly.
that. It's not the optimal choice, but it still fits your cap or whatever. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we already talked about the processed food and how that's okay in moderation.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I guess the last question I have for you is like, what would you say to someone that's maybe new to the process or hasn't even started in your former shoes, feeling a bit overwhelmed? Like, what's that sage advice for that person to kind of get out of their own head
Mm.
process?
Yeah, I would say like maybe pick one thing and just work at, checking that box. Once you've maybe been able to do that for a couple days, then you add, or like say 3 liters of water just seems outrageous. You can't, well, okay, let's start with two. I think most people throughout the day, and maybe that means like setting a timer every hour or two to, as a reminder to drink a glass of water or make a cup of tea, or, because you can get creative with that stuff. I've certainly have, my little packets and stuff, and I'm really into loose leaf tea. So especially in the summertime, making like iced tea that's 0 calories tastes delicious and refreshing. It's not, from a powder. It's from real tea leaves and little ingredients and things like that. I really enjoy that. So, yeah, just starting little, and okay, once you've gotten the 2 liters down, then maybe add an extra cup or two in the next few days, and same with your steps. If 8,000 doesn't seem possible, okay, like increase it by a couple hundred every few days or something, and until that just becomes part of your program and part of your life. And it, I don't think shocking your system is necessarily the greatest thing to do for longevity, anyways.
Mm. Yeah. So not 0 to 60, but 0 to 40
Yeah.
and then build up. I
Yeah.
like it. That's the game. Nice. Well, before I let you go, though, obviously, cliffhanger, like just proof of concept, like share your specific results just so that people get a sense of
Oh,
what's
sure.
possible. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah, yeah, no. So I think as of yesterday, I'm down 67 pounds, which is just so wonderful. And it's such a funny thing because, you see yourself in the mirror every day, so it doesn't seem like a big deal. But then, like looking at the before and the current pictures it's like a whole new person. And sometimes I think like it's a new me, but it's like, oh, like I'm getting back to like the old me is kind of how I think of it. And um yeah, so I mean that's, and then like inches, and of course all those things um kind of coincide and go together. So that's been amazing. And it seems like every few weeks I'm kind of complaining that my pants don't fit very well. And so yeah, but yeah, that's the obviously the biggest. The scale is 67 down and feeling good.
Boom. And yeah, we wouldn't get into the inches, which are even more impressive. So kudos to that. Yeah, Brett said nailed it right in her second week and feels like she has to nail it all. You're proof that obviously it's a process to get to 100%. And really the goal is 80%
That's
all the
right.
time, not 100% some of the time. So there you are. Appreciate you taking the time, Jackie. Any
My
questions for her? You can drop them in the chat. We can answer them there, or we'll move on to our second guest who's waiting patiently. Jen, do you mind unmuting? We've got you on the calendar, I believe. So hopefully you know this is coming. Okay. Welcome, former neighbors. Now no longer. She's moved out of the concrete jungle to more rural, which is more your style, I believe, right? We're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I do not miss living in Winnipeg at all.
I don't blame you. So take us back a ways now for you, but like before you started, where were the gaps? What made you kind of take the leap and team up here?
So when I started, I'm gonna be honest, I knew what to do. I just wasn't bloody well doing it. I needed that accountability piece. And what really changed and what really pushed me to reaching out to Mitch and starting with the program was I saw myself in the mirror and I saw myself in in pictures, and I just didn't like what I saw anymore. I have been on the weight fluctuation up, down, all around most of my adult life, and it's been a frustrating time. And so I reached out to Mitch, and as they say, the rest is history. The accountability piece has been the biggest thing for me. Ultimately, with Mitch, with checking in every Mondays and Wednesdays in the groups has been a savior, honestly.
Yeah. So the human relationship, that's a big piece. Yeah, because everyone can figure it out, at least on paper, what to do. It's just doing it. That's where the gap is for the majority of us. So kind of share like of the big five, I'm pretty sure nutrition was where we needed to tighten things up, but like what did you struggle with early and how do we kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I I wasn't tracking my food prior, and so I had to learn this whole new process of tracking food. And ultimately, what I found is I actually wasn't eating enough calories, and I wasn't getting enough protein, calciprese on that. So I was actually able to eat more and actually have success. So that was the biggest thing. At first I hated tracking. It was a pain in the butt. It was time consuming. It was onerous, and I didn't like doing it. Jump ahead a year and a half to almost 2 years now, being in Calvert Fitness. Piece of cake, no issues. I log in the morning, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is consistency with my breakfasts, basically consistencies with my lunches, consistencies a lot with my dinners as well, with some variation to, excite my palate every once in a while has been really helpful for me. And the other big takeaway for me, and I'm gonna be really open and honest here, was I was moving enough. I was getting my steps in. I was working out 5 or 6 days a week with both cardio and strength training. I was working out 45 to 60 minutes every single day with maybe one rest day a week. And then Mitch said, "No, you're going to work out less." And I'm like, whatever, this isn't going to work. So I had to just sort of trust the process that working out less was actually going to be helpful. And so one of the things that I've found is I am working out less, but I'm pushing myself a heck of a lot harder than what I was doing when I was working out 45 to 60 minutes, because I know I'm only working out, 30 minutes at a time now. And that's been great for me mentally as well as physically.
I love that. That's a great takeaway because yeah, the reps that matter are the hard ones at the end. It's not about how much or how long you're doing it for. And a lot of the misconceptions in the fitness space is group fitness sweat. And the more you sweat, the better your results, when we know in fact that that's just not how your body works. That's great. Great takeaways there. And like anything, it's hard at first, but as you get better at it, just like riding a bike, tracking, same idea. I still lean on tracking because I find it I'm in the dark if I don't. So if I have a specific goal, obviously I don't track year round. But it's just one of those tools that works better than anything else. Okay, so I guess the question I asked Jackie, same to you, is like, what's that one tactical thing you do each week that may not be obvious, but really helps with your adherence and results?
For me, it's the accountability. Honestly, being able to check in on a weekly basis with Mitch, being able to check in weekly with the group has helped so much. And in those first couple of months, there were days when I just wanted to go off the rails and eat everything in sight. Let's be honest, there's still days when I want to do that, but I don't because I know that I'm being accountable to someone other than myself. And at the same time, it sucks that I can't just be accountable to just me. I don't know what it is. There's some psychology around it for sure. But man, having everybody, read what my scores are in the Big Five and checking in with how I'm doing has really helped me just kind of maintain my consistency. One of the things that I asked Mitch when I first started out is, if I'm not perfect, are you going to yell and scream at me? We know how we see online so many people hear that their coaches are yelling and screaming at them if they're not working out hard enough or if they're not meeting their calorie and protein goals. And never once has Mitch done that, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that's not my style, nor would I ever want to be coached that way. So I get there's a bit of a tug of war there, which I like to push back a bit at times when it's needed, but in the right format, right delivery method. So hopefully, I'm glad that's been received that way. So
No,
what?
the challenge is there for sure. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? What do you need to change? But certainly not in a negative way by any stretch of the imagination.
100%. So tell us about the times when you do fall off, because you do, everyone does. Like, how do you get back? How do you reset faster than maybe your former self did when it would lead to overeating and so on?
Yeah, so this past April, for example, I went to Mexico for 10 days. Didn't track. I did my workouts, I got my walks in, but I didn't track my calories at all. And I knew going into Mexico that that's what was going to happen. That I wasn't going to track. I think I needed that mental break. But I also knew that the day that I got back, I was going back into tracking and going back into my routine. So just knowing that I had a break, but knowing that after that break, I was going to jump in head first, feet first, making sure that I got back into tracking immediately after I got back was something that really helped me. I did it last year too when I went to London for a couple of weeks, didn't keep track of anything. But I knew that the moment that I got back into Canada and landed and back into home, there was back into routine. I don't know if there was a turning point or anything like that. I just knew vacation, don't need to track. Back into the reality of the real world and going to work and back into my routine, I'm tracking and I'm getting back on track. And, to be truthful, 10 days of not tracking wasn't the end of the world. By probably a week and a half into tracking and meeting my cap, all that water weight was gone.
Yeah. And that's important, I think, to have the mindset that, it's what you do most of the time that matters. And a 10-day break from all of it, it's nice just to kind of put it aside for a little bit. I think there's some merit to diet breaks from a physiological perspective, but also more so the psychology of it. But knowing that how you feel when you come back, like, I'm kind of missing how I feel when I'm doing everything right. That's almost a reminder to why we do the right things too. So I think you nailed that. I think that's an important piece for everybody. Okay. So the question I kind of ended with Jackie, I think is a good one to ask you as well, is like, because you started and it was a real struggle to track and so on. So what would you tell that person who's like your day one self who found everything hard? What's
Yeah.
your advice?
Stick with it. I mean, I think a lot of the time we talk about trust the process, and that doesn't really seem to mean a whole lot at the beginning because it seems like it's so far down the road. But I honestly trust the process of doing it one day at a time. Heck, sometimes do it a meal at a time, and it'll get easier. I promise. If you stick with it, if you consistently do it, it honestly does get easier. just keep on keeping on is what I have to say. I do have to say something else though too funny. So I hit my goal weight probably last fall, and I was in maintenance for about 6 months, I think. And then I got curious about building and growing muscle and that kind of thing. And so I talked to Mitch about, okay, well, what does the building phase look like, and what's that gonna do? And he told me about it, and he told me about the weight gain and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. But you know what, I jumped in head first and I said, oh, you know what, let's do this build phase for a year. And so I'm actually eating more calories and more protein now, to build more muscle over the course of the next year. The thing that has been really helpful is that it's been a slow, consistent weight gain. So I'm not gaining 10 pounds in 2 weeks or anything ridiculous like that. It's been slow and consistent. And I know as long as I trust the process and I keep doing things consistently, I'm going to see progress. I have to just be patient with it.
Yeah, and that's a harder, yeah, especially for women. That's a tough one to wrap your head around, but it definitely makes your next diet a lot easier too, because you've built up more of a baseline metabolism, more muscle. Your body looks different, looks leaner without getting lighter. So I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but most people aren't converted to that. That's fine. You don't have to worry about that. It's nothing that's required, but certainly we encourage it. Any questions for Jen or any final comments on your end? See if we have any that come up. You can use the chat or unmute at this point and at the end of the call. So if not, I appreciate you two taking the time to share. I think that was really helpful to have some, not just me telling you guys what to do, but those who've actually been through it. No, all good? Okay. We'll trust that you guys learned a lot. You're going to action it. Otherwise, we'll bring back one of these segments in the future. I think we'll probably have to do a few more of these over the next few months, because a lot of people have signed up, and I think I'd like to hear from everybody. Different stages of the journey. We'll get some guys on even though they're not that open to talking. And I have a few that said yes to that as well. So we'll leave it there then for today. We'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers.